Understanding, rail against, an English phrase explained. Hello and welcome to our English learning series. Today, we're going to uncover the meaning and usage of the phrase, rail against. Stick around to find out how this phrase can add emotion and strength to your English expressions. Rail against is a phrase that means to complain or protest strongly about something. When someone rails against something, they are expressing their dissatisfaction or opposition to it in a vocal or passionate manner. It's often used to describe a scenario where someone is not just casually mentioning a problem but is actively and forcefully speaking out against it. The term rail, in this context, comes from the Old French word railer, which means to tease or jest. Over time, it took on a stronger connotation of scolding or reprimanding in a loud or harsh manner. Understanding this origin can help you grasp the intensity of the phrase, rail against. To get a better sense of how to use rail against, let's look at a few examples. The citizens railed against the new policy that they believed was unfair. He spent the entire evening railing against the decisions of the company's management. Activists often rail against social injustices to bring about change. There are several synonyms that carry a similar meaning to rail against. Some of them include protest, complain vehemently, denounce, criticize strongly. Using these synonyms can add variety to your English and help you find the right intensity for your statements. Thank you for watching. We hope this video has helped clarify the meaning of rail against and how you can use it to express strong opposition or dissatisfaction. Keep practicing, and don't hesitate to rail against any obstacles in your path to learning English. See you in the next video.